5 names that you guys, Steelers fans, should 100% be locked in on this week at the NFL Combine. Indianapolis is going to be great. I personally think that you have to combine both their testing and their interview status with the Steelers to determine just what your takeaway is from the Combine. If a guy runs fast and looks really good, awesome. But if he doesn't meet with the Pittsburgh Steelers, you got to take that into consideration. You can't just look at guys and say, Jackson Dart looked phenomenal, but he didn't say a word to Mike Tomlin all week. That's not a good indication he's on the Steelers' radar. These are not 5 names that I think are going to perform super well. These are not 5 names that I think are superstars in the making. These are 5 names that if I'm a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, I'm locked in on because I think they are actual targets for the Pittsburgh Steelers and names that they will consider very highly in this NFL draft. We'll start with number 5. That is good old Caleb Johnson, running back out of Iowa. The Steelers are going to look at him and say, this dude meets everything we're looking for. He's powerful, he's explosive, and he's damn fast. I believe that Iowa, I saw something the other day, and again, it was just a clip on Twitter, so I don't know how truthful this is, but it looked legit that Iowa's GPS tracked him at 22 miles per hour during the season. That's ridiculous for a guy who's like 220, 230. That's wild fast. The Steelers are going to be into Caleb Johnson. They're going to be real into a running back. Caleb Johnson fits that mold of like a second, maybe inches his way into the 3rd round running back, depending on how things fall. And that is exactly where the Steelers are going to be looking. I believe Caleb Johnson is 100% on the Steelers list. He is a name to watch for the Steelers. Number 4 is a name we just talked about, Darius Alexander. They loved him at the Senior Bowl. I would imagine they meet with him again, and how he tests will determine not just if the Steelers have interest, but if the rest of the NFL has interest. If Darius Alexander blows the top off of Indianapolis and Lucas Oil Stadium erupts over a 330-pound dude running a 4.5, chances are he's going in the 1st round. And the Steelers aren't going to get an opportunity to even sniff the chance of Darius Alexander. So I'm all eyes on the Toledo nose tackle. Number 3 is a 2-parter, and that's the Ohio State Twins, the running backs in the making, Quinshon Judkins and Travion Henderson. I think both of them are studs. The Steelers are obviously going to go to Columbus. They're going to be all in on both of these guys. It depends on where they fall. I've seen mock drafts where Henderson goes in the 1st round before anybody but Genty. I don't know what the board is going to shape up to be, but I do know the Steelers are going to be looking at those 3 names. Caleb Johnson, Judkins, Henderson will be the 3 names that the Steelers say, those are realistic targets for us. Let's go get those realistic targets. Omarion Hampton will be on their list as well, but they don't typically go to North Carolina, and I have a hard time believing that they're going to be all in on a guy that's probably going to go before their 2nd round pick. I just don't think that's going to be realistic. Sometimes they do take that into consideration. They don't speak with the Marvin Harrisons or the Malik Neighbors or the whoever's because they only have a certain number of interviews, and they're saying, yeah, all right, this guy's going to be gone before we get a chance to really look at him. And that plays a role a number of times. Number 2 on this list is my 1st round pick for the Steelers, Walter Nolen. Again, he's are you going to go before Kenneth Grant? Are you going to go after Kenneth Grant? How's the board going to shake up because of what you're doing? How much attention and traction are you going to build at Lucas Oil and in Indianapolis? That's what this week is. This is we see the board here, but the board ain't done. The board has so much shaking and turning to do over the next couple of weeks, and this is where it starts. And it's a massive shakeup between today and Sunday morning when everybody leaves Indy. So Walter Nolen is number 2, and number 1 is Emeka Egbuka, because he's in the same boat. Everybody expects this guy to be a late 1st round pick until he goes to Indy and just knocks everybody's socks off. And all of a sudden, he's a top 15 pick. All of a sudden, there's consideration that he's the 1st wide receiver off the board and somebody's going to take a chance on him early in the 1st round. And you could say that doesn't happen. It happens all the time. All the time. Teams say, oh, we'll take this wide receiver. And everybody goes, what? I didn't see that coming. That could be Emeka Egbuka this year. It could easily be Emeka Egbuka. I mean, you look at guys going into the NFL Combine last year, or 2 years ago, I guess. You want to know who the name was that outside of a quarterback, I was like, man, this guy is perfect for the Steelers and might be there at 20? Devin Witherspoon out of Seattle or out of Illinois. And you want to know where he ended up? As the 6th pick in the NFL draft because of what happened in Indianapolis. And I just think Emeka Egbuka's got that upside. So I'm all eyes on him. Does he explode? Who does he meet with? That is a massive conversation there. Who has eyes on Emeka Egbuka, and are the Steelers one of them? That is everybody I'm looking at. Caleb Johnson, Darius Alexander, the Ohio State backs, Walter Nolen, Emeka Egbuka. That's my top 5 names to watch as a Steelers fan this week at the Combine. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, the one major takeaway and the one name that stands out to me there is Caleb Johnson, right? The NFL draft process is a very long, very winding road, and you talk about certain players and fall in love with certain players for a couple weeks, and then somebody else pops up, and you got to talk about them, and how good would they look in black and gold? But we already know Caleb Johnson looks great in black and gold, and that was the first name that everybody started looking at and saying, listen, this guy is a prototypical Steelers running back. Mm-hmm. And he was very, very good at the University of Iowa. But you know what else happened? Ohio State went on and won the longest ever, biggest ever, greatest ever, most watched ever college football playoff on the backs of Travion Henderson, of Quinshon Judkins, and of Emeka Egbuka. And all of a sudden, everybody in Pittsburgh said, would you look at that? Doesn't hurt that Cam Hayward is definitely, pushing Ohio State pride all the time.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's as simple as going back to your first thought. And I think my first thought, and a lot of other people in Pittsburgh's first thought, was the running back position looks like Caleb Johnson would be a perfect fit in the city of Pittsburgh. Like I mentioned, the colors fit, the style fits, the everything fits for Caleb Johnson. So that is a name that started at the top of my radar, has kind of fallen off a little bit. But now that we're back at the Combine, that's a name that 100%, you put him at number 5. I think he's a little bit higher on my list, and not to take anything off of some of these other guys, but I think Caleb Johnson's a name that we've forgotten about a little too much over the last couple of weeks.
I agree. I agree. I like that. I like that analysis. I look at Caleb Johnson as, man, dude, if there's some possible way that he slides to the 3rd round, the Steelers are crazy not to make a move and go get him. They're just nuts. Go make a move. Go give up a 5th round pick, a 6th round pick, go give up all your 7s. Who cares? Move up in the 3rd round. Go get Caleb Johnson. I agree. I think he's got so much upside. There are running backs in some draft classes that you watch. The Najee Harris draft class is a great example, where you're looking at these middle round guys and going, man, they could be good. They could be good. This is a draft class where you are pretty certain that at least 5 of these guys are going to be stars. Like stars, and that this is the draft class where the running back position has caught up, where the NFL has too many good running backs. The running back position is too devalued to where you look at these guys and you go, man, dude, if you're like, you could look at free agency and that's great. And you're going to get some names out there, but there aren't the big free agents because everybody's on a team. Last year, the Josh Jacobs, the Saquons, the Christians, the everybody got signed. There were all these teams. The Joe Mixons got traded. Everybody was out there. Okay, nobody was waiting around for this running back class. The Steelers were, and hopefully they take advantage of it. And I believe that they're gonna. I believe they're gonna.
Look at who is the top running back available right now if he gets to free agency. It's Najee Harris. And the Steelers elected a year ago to say, we're not extending him because that running back class could be really good and we could get a improvement on who the top free agent is going to be. If it all works out for them, it looks great. If it doesn't and they don't get one of these running backs, then, rightfully so, there's going to be a lot of people angry at the bosses there in Southside.
I agree, but I even think that if you go below Caleb Johnson, there are some names that you're looking at going, it's okay.
I don't know if it's RJ Harvey, but there are some names.
Yeah, you're going deep before you get to RJ Harvey, but you could go Ollie Gordon. You could go what's his name out of Miami. There are some names that I think are sitting there in that third, fourth round going, that ain't a bad running back. That ain't a bad running back. So we'll see what happens.